welcome to the Human Resources Summit exhibition, and also welcome to this session by GoVida on wellness. You will see that on the screen you've got GoVida, and some of you will be wondering what is GoVida. Quite rightly so, actually. GoVida is the leading corporate digital well-being platform in the UK. And they have produced a paper, a white paper, which is entitled, as you can see here, The 7 Vital Ingredients for Your 2021 Wellbeing Strategy. So this is what we're going to present at a high level in this short presentation today. I'm very happy to be joined actually by Alex Bentley, who is on the board of GoVida. And my name is John Bentley. I'm the Managing Director of Powerbase Consulting here in Dubai. Powerbase is the GoVida sole distributor for the Middle East, the Mediterranean and the Africa region. We specialize in leadership development, and with a very significant focus on emotional intelligence and business communications, and we also have a well-being division. It's a natural fallout from what we do. So that's why we are working with GoVida here in Dubai. So many of you will have some questions on what is a well-being strategy. And by the way, if you do have any questions as we go through, feel free to drop these into the chat line. We'll do our best to answer them whilst we're in the presentation. If not, maybe at the end. If not that, visit us at our booth, the Powerbase GoVida booth, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So, in the very first instance, many of you might have questions about what a well-being strategy may look like. Some of you already have one, some of you have implemented one, no doubt. Some may be halfway through their implementation, maybe want to enhance it, and there are some of those that haven't started yet or are not even thinking about it. So I hope that this will be useful to you in getting some background. So we're actually going to start with the business case for well-being, and we will also cover what are the critical components that you need to consider for an effective well-being strategy, and the third point is how should leaders best support and enhance the well-being of their teams, essentially for sustainability. So let's start then. I will say that well-being is not a new concept at all. It goes way back, and I've cited two organizations that are well known today, Unilever and Cadbury's. Unilever began as Lever Brothers, you can see them there in Liverpool, and they started their organization in 1885, in humble beginnings, as you can see with their factory. John Cadbury was a little bit earlier than that. John Cadbury started his business in 1824 in Birmingham in the UK. And you'll see a friendly smiley face of a Quaker there on Quaker Oats. That's not actually anything to do specifically this time with Quaker Oats. But why that is up there is because many of the leading entrepreneurs of the day utilized the Quaker philosophy of care and consideration for their employees. And actually some of these organizations, specifically John Cadbury in this case, was a Quaker himself. So history has proved that actually, if you have an effective well-being strategy, this can contribute significantly to success. So what they did was to focus on a variety of different facilities and amenities, the likes of which you can see on the left-hand side here. And they built towns, they had gardens, they had care facilities for their children, etc. But all of them exhibited considerable care and consideration for their employees. Now, the basic premise was that to focus on well-being for their employees and let the employees focus on the well-being of the business. That was the basic essence of it. And so that's what happens. And now if you look today at Lever Brothers there, or Unilever I should say. By the way, Unilever merged with, or Lever Brothers merged with Uni in 1910. Uni made margarine. And the interesting thing about that was when they actually did merge, they became the first multinational corporation in the world, and the largest of course. So it just goes to show what can be achieved. This was This was achieved by looking after their employees. They're not on their own, by the way. Many other organisations, Cadbury's and Lee, I've mentioned. Clark's Shoes is another one. Lloyd's Bank, Barclays Bank, Joseph Fried Chocolates, they're still around. John Lewis Partnership gave a partnership to all their employees as part of their well-being strategy. And Josiah Wedgwood, even before these others, in the late 18th century, started the Josiah Wedgwood crockery business, which we all know today. And the list goes on. They're not on their own. There is one thing, though, which is that to wear the mask of well-being really is to be authentic and to be caring. The reality is that both an employer and also employees need to practice what they say they will do. There's no good. They will only be judged on what they do, not what they intend to do. So it's about being authentic, and it's about us doing what we're going to say we're going to do. So actions, as they say, speak louder than words. So if we come to today, we're now in the experience economy. We're edging towards this fourth industry, as many of you will know about. And research recently has revealed that actually it's some alarming information, particularly evident that employees are actually becoming increasingly frustrated. Now, in what we've discovered in a Peakon study, which was conducted in 2019, the results were in January 2020, that in a 90 million employee survey, this is what it showed. 59% of the global workforce was disengaged. That's an incredible statistic. Equally, burnout is estimated to cost the global economy up to $323 billion a year. Now, if you think of that in the UAE terms, then certainly the UAE, generally speaking, typically is somewhere between 5 and 10% of global figures. So we're still talking $16 to $32 billion a year as a result of burnout. Well-being is also being increasingly discussed amongst the younger generations. So the results of the survey showed here that in Gen Z, this is up by 28%. Millennials, as you know, have been focused on this for some time, 22%. Even the baby boomers, my generation, is up by 6%. Strangely, though, the silent generation is up by 22%. But maybe that's understandable. And in terms of sectors, this is quite interesting because the main sectors of finance, government, consumer and materials. So it's between 21% and 51% more discussion being, rising discussion about well-being. So the adverse is also true, by the way, of this. And if we look at, what is the result of not doing this? What we're seeing from that study and others is consistently lower employee engagement. We as Powerbase do a lot of work with teams, with organizations in the Middle East, and what we see, we can concur with what we're seeing here. Engagement is decreasing. Although I was very pleased to see that one organization in the hundreds that we've done recently had a world-class engagement score. So that's one organization. But interestingly, when you looked at that, they were a caring and considerate employer. Absenteeism, of course, is causing continuous disruption, and presenteeism as well. We call this the sticky feet syndrome. People turn up for work because they get paid, and maybe they'll give you 80-90% of effort, maybe, but essentially they're just less enthusiastic. And all of this causes higher employee churn, and that's going to be true very much, as many of you know already, with the millennials, who will not agree to many of the conditions in the way that we've worked in the past. So employees need to feel good about where they work. Fine, you can attend to some of the components of a strategy, and it's a start, but it's not the end of the story. A sticking plaster won't heal the whole person. So you have to apply this in a more holistic way. And this quote by Maya Angelou is one I like particularly. It is, I'm sure you've heard this before, people may forget what you actually intend to do, what you say, but they won't forget on how you and the organization make them feel. Now that was pre-COVID. All of that was up to January 2020, but now we've got a different situation altogether. What is it like in post-COVID-19? What's it going to be like? It's changed our lives forever, our working lives forever. And so research has shown equally some startling facts. If I go back to the Peakon study, we can see that employee concern about flexible and remote working increased 18% globally. And also employee concern about diversification and inclusion increased 19% globally. That was in January 2020. Since COVID, people are feeling even more isolated, even more disconnected and alone. So these figures can only be worse. So how can we remedy this? Another factor in this is that I work with 6 Seconds, which is the largest emotional intelligence neuroscience network in the world. And every 2 years, 6 Seconds conduct a study. It's called the State of the Heart Report. And over the last 25 to 30 years, what this has revealed is that collaboration has decreased 25%, whilst stress has increased 20%. So you can see how this affects engagement because people are too stressed. The fact is that as stress increases, we become much more task focused and much more reactive. This actually increases our isolation even more. So it's a vicious loop that we get into with this. So we have to be very, very careful of this whole engagement piece. Now, imagine that if we could increase the engagement, decrease stress, and increase that engagement just 10%, what would that 10% mean to your organization? So, the cost of a well-being strategy would be far outweighed by a 10% increase in engagement in your organization in terms of performance. Not only that, and especially as we talked about millennials before, maybe if they get fed up, they're gonna move on, and we're seeing this. We're seeing this in the UK, we're seeing it in the US as well, significantly. Now, employees, it's interesting that 50% of employees surveyed said that they would be prepared to take a 29% cut in salary to work for the right company. So you have to define what the right company is. One of those attributes is a well-being and caring society within that organization. The other factor is that we at Powerbase ourselves have conducted a number of studies, many surveys here in the UAE, and the results of our assessments and studies show some interesting facts that performance is directly correlated to how much you value your people, and therefore that has an impact also on loyalty. The other thing is that we've discovered in many of our assessments that the primary drivers to create a well-being environment, a loyal environment, is health and satisfaction. So very many times we see at the bottom of the dashboards of our team or organizational assessments, the bottom two are health and satisfaction. It's interesting. So this is all about motivation. This is all about igniting that motivation. And when motivation is ignited, it spreads. And I love this quote from Stephen Covey because it's absolutely right. So we need to be concerned about well-being from the position of the business case. So I've just explained a little bit there about why we should consider this. And still ongoing with the 7 vital ingredients for your 2021 well-being strategy. Now we need to look at what are the critical components of an effective well-being strategy, and how should leaders support and enhance the well-being of their teams and teams for sustainability. And to do that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Alex Bentley in the UK. And he will explain a little bit more about this and how the GoVida, how the 7 ingredients work. Okay, Alex, over to you. Thanks.
Hello, it's great to be here at HRSE. Thanks for the intro, John, and for sharing the context and business case for Wellbeing. I'm going to share some practical advice, some things that you can implement within your business that will improve well-being. But before I do that, I'd like to share our philosophy at GoVida. We believe that physical and mental well-being go hand in hand. They're inextricably linked. For example, physical movement has been shown to reduce anxiety, increase hope, build confidence, and enhance mood. By incorporating both physical and mental health elements within your well-being strategy, you're more likely to deliver effective outcomes. So, moving on to the practical advice, and I'm going to start with some tips for improving physical well-being. And the first one is to look at the motivators when you're designing your well-being strategy. So people are different. Their interests are different. People have different levels of physical health and capability. And you'll have people within your business that are right across the well-being spectrum. So when you're looking to get your people more active, think about what motivates them. Offer a range of activities that's likely to appeal to that broad, diverse base that you have within your workforce. And also consider using or incorporating perhaps some alternative or non-mainstream activities. Activities where the majority of people are beginners. It levels the playing field. It reduces the inhibitions that are associated with participating. Everyone's in the same boat. Everybody's learning. And it reinforces the fact that it's okay to make mistakes. So the second thing, it's a little bit cliched, is start with steps. Steps tracking is something that everybody's familiar with. A lot of people have wearables, they're already tracking steps. It's accessible through almost everybody's smartphone, whether it's an Android or an Apple device. So it's very inclusive and it's not intimidating. Almost anybody can participate in this. And according to the American Council on Exercise, people who track steps do 2,500 more steps on average than people that don't. Third, participation in groups. People are more likely to engage in activity, physical activity, when it's part of a group. And if you kind of think about this logically, it makes sense, right? It's far more difficult to motivate yourself to go out and go for a run on your own than it is to, say, meet somebody for a game of tennis or catch up with somebody at the gym. Team activities are proven to be more enjoyable, more fun. And I think that's because of the social element. Team activities create a sense of belonging. They promote teamwork and collaboration. It builds relationships and it helps to reduce stress. Scheduling time. In any working day, it's really difficult to fit in exercise and movement. With remote working and the pandemic and COVID, this is amplified. When you're working from home, your working time just blends into your home life. And it's very difficult to carve out that time. There's not so much structure as perhaps when you're following a daily commute to the office. So it's really important to encourage people to schedule that time to get up and move around. Just put in a reminder, block out time in the schedule. A really good idea is to set some time out at the beginning of the day and or the end of the day. This is a great time to reset, to energise, to clear the mind. But then it's also important to put in short breathing spaces during the day. It doesn't have to be a long period, just 15 minutes. A 15-minute break has been proven to reduce stress and improve performance and concentration. For those people that are really busy, just take a call, get up, go for a walk whilst you're on the call. It may not be as good as taking a step away from work, but at least it's getting you moving. It's kind of re-energizing the body. And that's a really positive step. And my final tip on the physical well-being side is it's not just about movement and exercise. It's also about looking after your body. So more sleep, but in this case, nutrition. In office environments, many companies have been providing fruit and healthy snacks to staff for a long time. It's a very established process. In this new paradigm, working from home, maybe it's a little bit harder, but maybe not. How about sending your staff just a small monthly parcel with some healthy foods in, Or if that's too much, perhaps offering discounts to staff to buy nutritious and healthy foods. It's really about the small gestures. It's a great signal to your people that the company cares about their individual well-being. Okay, so moving on now to mental well-being. And, as with the physical well-being, we're not promoting anything really radical here. Incremental change can be far-reaching. It's about doing the small things. So you heard from John earlier about the increase in stress and the risk of burnout. I think these days, it's not just the fact that we're under more stress. Half the time, when you're under stress, you don't necessarily realise how close to exhaustion you are. It's only when you stop, you take that breather, perhaps there's some holiday, or a long weekend, or just a break from work, that you realise how exhausted you actually were. So by making it acceptable to take time out, by encouraging that as just a corporate value, as a way of being and operating within businesses, it can really help to sort of drive that culture, make it acceptable. But also, a lot of people, don't necessarily know how to relax, and so providing some guidance and some advice can be really helpful as well. It's not about being really prescriptive, more about providing suggestions, suggesting things like meditations, offering yoga, mindfulness. But it could also be alternative things like singing and art. It doesn't have to be something that's really formal and to do with a formal meditation program. Could be individual activities. It could also link to a social activity. We talked about that earlier. It's got a real multiplier effect when you get people together and collaborating. Secondly, we're doing more video conferences. More video calls than ever before. It's great to keep that personal connection, but it's absolutely exhausting. I find myself, I don't know about you, but I find myself sat in a chair, glued to the screen, talking to people, for hours and hours on end. And it can be really, really draining. But how many of these video calls are absolutely necessary? Could we do some with just voice? It's less tiring with audio only. And it gives you also an opportunity to move around and to energise. Something to promote within your business, perhaps. The third thing, and look, I think this picture kind of speaks 1,000 words. Since COVID, it's become a reality for many of us that we're trying to homeschool and work at the same time. It's taking multitasking to a completely new level. And although kids in the background might be one distraction that we can't avoid, there are certain things that we can do. So kids aside, we find that technology drives a lot of the pressure these days. We're bombarded from every angle. We have Yammer, we have Slack, we've got email, we're on the phone. And actually multitasking costs us a 10% reduction in IQ. There's a really simple solution to this. Turn off notifications. Just block out certain times in the day that are purely for focused, single task activities. Personal productivity will increase. So for HR and business leaders, this is about setting the tone and leading by example. Okay, and the final point on our mental well-being recommendations is around stress triggers. John talked about the increase in stress, the 25% increase in stress, and I just spoke about the role that technology plays in that. So a main focus for John and the Powerbase team is emotional intelligence, or EQ, and understanding how our emotions can help to manage stress, or control of our emotions can help to manage stress. The skill is really to learn when to recognise those stress triggers and to take a pause, to acknowledge it. The subsequent action that you take when you've understood it and paused and acknowledged is likely to result in a better outcome. It's much easier said than done, however. But you can develop these skills like anything else. So encouraging your people to develop their EQ alongside other personal development activities can be really powerful here. All right, so this brings me to the final section of this presentation. And these are our principles for effective well-being. We call them our 7 vital ingredients. It's the how, really. And in the same way as it's better to avoid getting COVID entirely than it is to have to treat it, so using the antibacterial hand wash, for example. It's also better to create those sustainable well-being behaviours rather than addressing acute physical and mental well-being issues once they've already arisen and they're already a problem within your business. By creating those positive habits, you can embed that within your culture, and it lasts. It's far more sustainable. It lasts far longer. Secondly, flexibility. Organisations are diverse. It's not a case of one size fits all. Individuals within your organisation have different goals and they change over time. So it's really important to listen to people, listen to the needs of your people, and design a flexible programme that supports the diverse needs of your team. Third, and my 1-year-old daughter's favourite slide, this, she perked up when I put this slide in front of her. Health can sometimes be perceived negatively. It can have a negative connotation. So think about how you brand well-being. Brand it as positive, as exciting, as aspirational. You've got to capture the interest and the attention of the team, but also be light-hearted and memorable. This is about having fun. The overall objective should be about creating that positive employee experience. So the fourth thing, people love to play games. We're programmed to rise to the challenge. We see gamification everywhere now. Even Google reviews are gamified. I find myself, just doing one more review and I get sucked into these Google reviews. Wellbeing's no different. By applying goal-setting principles using gamification, it's a great way to drive adoption and engagement. And that can really help you to drive the right outcome. Fifth, team building. And if you recall John's slide on the corresponding increase in stress and the decrease in collaboration over the past 25 years, this kind of comes into play here. I talked about promoting group activities as being a powerful lever for driving well-being. But you've got an opportunity to, as you build out your well-being program, to embed team building, to embed team events to drive collaboration and teamwork. It'll result in an improvement in productivity and performance. And in fact, sports psychology research has found that winning teams aren't those with the most talented or experienced players. Winning teams are those that stay together for longer. Use well-being to form strong, long-lasting bonds and continuity across your teams. Sixth, as humans, we all strive for a higher purpose, the pursuit of noble goals. And in fact, acts of kindness can increase that sense of personal well-being. So linking your well-being strategy with your CSR initiatives can be a really powerful lever. It can bring people together and it can give them a conduit to fulfill that higher purpose. And the final point, the final ingredient is, like any other strategic initiative, it's absolutely critical to have that senior level sponsorship. Without that, it just won't become ingrained in the company values and culture. Simple as that. Okay, so I'd like to close out and just round out so in summary, much of the challenges we face in the workplace around burnout and stress are brought about by technology. But like in so many other areas, technology can also provide the solution. It's possible to harness digital platforms like GoVida to bring your people together. Digital has the power to reach and engage people and to foster collaboration, community, and a sense of purpose. And it's often missing in today's distributed and remote working global businesses. This is a way to elevate the employee experience. So that brings me to the end. Hopefully we've got a minute or two left for questions on the chat. If you do run out of time, then please do come over and visit us at our booth. We're exhibiting in the exhibition hall. And also just a little plug, our CEO, Chris Tomkinson, will be doing a demo session tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Thanks very much for listening and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.